You might have heard the phrase that old ways don't open new doors. Well, it's the same in leadership. The old way of leading is not going to cut it in today's world. And that's what we're talking about today: elevated leadership. How you can take the old ways and amp them up so that you can have impact in today's changing landscape. I'm Clara Capano, and this is ClaraTY in Action. Welcome to ClaraTY in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ClaraTY in Action. You know, this is the show where we have real conversations so that we can dive deeper, break through all the myths, and really inspire action. And today we are talking about something called elevated leadership. You know, we all lead, whether it's leading others, leading ourselves. How can we do that at a higher level? And I'm excited because I have a new friend joining me, and she is a keynote speaker and leadership consultant. So Laurie Maddalena, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Clara. Awesome to be here.
Yeah. So tell us, please break it down. What is this thing that you call elevated leadership?
Well, what I talk about in the book is how a lot has evolved over the past few decades in leadership what worked about, 20, 30 years ago, that more traditional style worked for a while until it didn't. And so now that style doesn't work, and the competencies that are required for leadership today are much higher than they were ever before. So there's 5 generations in the workplace. I know this, you know this from the work that you do as well, that this brings more complexity, that we moved from a time that what was valued was loyalty, tenure, sacrifice, to a time now where people want quality of life. They want to be able to feel connected to their positions and feel a sense of ownership in their roles, and that they're part of the process and some fulfillment. And so what it takes to lead people today is a lot different than what it was in past generations. And so we have to continually upgrade our skills and elevate how we're leading our teams.
Definitely. And I love that you're bringing this up. I've been talking with some other people about the same thing. And you're right. You know, we have these different generations, and, it so varies from moment to moment and who you're interacting with. And to make people feel valued, engaged, again, having the communication, our newer Gen Z people, they don't want the fluff. They're like, let's get to it. And then the ones that are the baby boomers, they want the relationships and, all of these. So what do you think are some of the biggest, mistakes that leaders are making when they have an office full of all these different ones? Do they tend to just pick one and go with it? Or like, what do you see them kind of missteps for them?
The biggest missteps I see are that leaders are still so focused on the task part of the role, and they don't make that jump to doing more of that leadership that you're talking about, which is tailoring their approach to each person in their office, making sure that they're personalizing that leadership. And so most leaders are just reactive every day, trying to get caught up, which we will never get caught up. So it's really about shifting into what I call a facilitator mindset, moving from fixing, getting in the trenches, telling people what to do, to a more facilitative role of, how do I build individual relationships with my team and facilitate their growth by being curious, helping to build their own critical thinking skills, helping them to take ownership of their roles and to develop them, help put together a personalized development plan for each person. I think that a lot of leaders don't find time for that because they're running from meeting to meeting and they're not intentional. And so this is a piece that I talk about, is that when we can be much more intentional with our focus and our energy, then we can find time for these things that are required to manage 5 generations. Most leaders don't even build that time into their schedule.
Yeah. So let's break it down, because I love what you're saying, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. But hitting on what you just said, finding the time to do it, because it does take more time to be the leader that we need today. So what are some things that you walk through and help the people that you work with to help them find the time?
Well, the first is going through an exercise that I call the key result areas exercise. And this is identifying the 3 to 5 most impactful results that your position brings to the organization.
Mm.
So most people are busying themselves with, very few things that are impactful in their leadership role. And so one of those of the key result areas, if you manage people, is being able to bring out the best performance of your team by coaching and developing them, by, facilitating.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding what those key result areas are first can be very helpful in then being intentional with how you plan your day.
Yeah.
Some of the other practices I talk about are not earth shattering, but most leaders aren't doing them. So for example, at the end of the day, taking a few minutes and recalibrating. What did I get done today? What didn't I get done? What are the two most important things in my key result areas that I need to focus on tomorrow? To come into the day with intention. No day is going to go perfect. So it doesn't mean that we come in and we have 4 hours to do nothing. But if we don't plan these things, it won't happen. And so being able to block time, I often tell my clients to go to a different location if you need to be able to get rid of as many distractions. I read a study recently that said 50% of our interruptions and distractions are self-inflicted.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's us picking up our phone or having our email up all the time. And it's these small things that fracture away at our time all day. We don't have clarity on what we should be working on. And so we just spin our wheels reacting.
Yeah. I want to kind of back up a little bit to what you were first saying, where the idea is, we're kind of running around and doing all these other things. And I think it's a really good exercise to revisit job descriptions. I think the reason that a lot of people don't get it's, when you're talking about those key result activities, a lot of them don't even know. So I think as a leader, really sitting down with them and making sure everybody is clear on what their role in the organization is, even the leader, because I think the leader ends up doing other people's jobs and not their own job. So I think it's, again, getting and having that clarity of what is your real job and then what are the activities and then helping them. I want to talk about time blocking because I love time blocking. I know that it works. People fight on me on it all the time. I can't do it. I have too many fires. People need me. I have an open door policy. So what are some of the myths that you hear people talking about when it comes to time blocking?
I have people fight me on this too, Clara. And
Yes,
I think
I know.
it's such a powerful, in my opinion, it's one of the most powerful tools and strategies that we can use in leadership, because I often tell my clients, no one's going to come to your door and say, oh, you're so busy, let me take things away from you and create the time for you.
Yes.
We have to be intentional. I think it sounds counterintuitive though, when we have so many things on our plate and we're, telling people, oh, you need to go off or block time and focus on one thing. They feel in their mind that, well, how do I possibly do that when I have so much to do? And I think that's why the clarity of those key results, the job description, going back to what you said, is helpful, because it starts to shift our mindset of, this is where I'm moving the needle. Yeah. Doing all day is not moving the needle. And so those blocks of time, I just had someone last week, I'll share a story that someone in my program, the first month we were talking about purposeful productivity. And so I talked about the blocking. I call them productivity sprints. Block productivity sprints in your calendar, even once a day, can be really impactful. And this leader mentioned that she has not taken lunch in 12 years. Now, productivity sprints, when I'm talking about them, are often about the work, right? Or however, it could be used blocking time for catching up on emails, but not having your email up all day, or blocking time for lunch, as she was talking about. She came back 4 weeks later and she said, Laurie, I took lunch for the first time. I've been taking it every day since our session, and it's been life-changing. And I emphasize, stories like that, because once you try it, I believe it does take some discipline, but you get addicted to it, because you realize the traction you get on important things that leaders need to do is so much more than you get more done in that hour and a half of block time than you would ever in a week in your office, where you're just reacting to things.
I always, talk to people, it's a mindset shift. I think people hear time blocking and they correlate it with regimented. Yes. Whereas I look at it as time blocking gives me freedom, because the things that get scheduled get done and everything is. And I think, going back to what you said with the lady in lunch, they think, every minute has to be done. They think it has to look a certain way. You'd use it for what's going to work for you. So for me, I like to take naps when I'm working from home. So I might have a time block for that. It's time blocking for allowing for joy. And again, it's progress, not perfection.
That's right.
You could just start small and then build into it. You could have a structured morning and a free form afternoon. So I think people need to understand it's a whole mindset shift on the abundance that it brings you, not what it's taking away from you.
And what you said is so important is that this structure creates freedom. Mm-hmm. The structure is what helps you gain traction and creates freedom, where you're now making more of an influence, you're having a better impact, and you're not feeling overwhelmed and in the weeds all the time. Yeah. You mentioned open door policy, and I just have to say this because I try to dispel this myth in so many organizations, because it's become this big thing that, oh, we have an open door policy. I personally think it's one of the worst policies out there, that we need to banish the open door policy. We've named things and they've taken on a life of their own. And I really think we've lost the true meaning and spirit of what certain things mean. So when we say open door policy, we mean we want leaders who are supportive and approachable for their teams. I don't think we mean we need leaders who are available every single minute of the day, because if we're saying that, and I think people really take this to heart, like I should have my door open all the time. And what if I close my door? And I say, how you do that is important. Don't go back and start closing your door all day. Mm-hmm. But if you go out to your team and you say, I'm going to close my door for an hour and a half to work on this project I really need to focus on, I'll be available at 1:00. If it's an emergency, you can text me or come in. People will respect that. It's how you put it in place.
And I had to learn that lesson because I had the open door policy. But what was happening is my door was always open. They would come in though, and I would get interrupted so they could see it on my face. I would be hearing my phone go, and it's like, so I wasn't present. Yes. Physically. I was there for you, but they're like, she's still not really there for us. And when I started doing exactly that, and I did those sprints, I call it bubble time, I would put on my door, working on this, available at this time. And when I explained to them what I was doing, that I was available, oftentimes when I went to find them and I said, hey, I saw you coming, they're like, oh, we figured it out. Yes. But it's like you said, we need to really define what is the outcome we want from the open door policy, because that's really what we want to create.
That's right. We can be approachable. We can be supportive of our team, and we can have touch points. Those are important, right? It's not about being an absent leader. It's very much about being an active leader. But how do we carve that time for ourselves so that we're working on things that are moving things forward and getting the results that we need to get in our positions?
Yeah, fantastic. So I know that sometimes the biggest obstacle is ourselves, and we sabotage ourselves all the time. And you have something that you call the 6 saboteurs. So I would love to have you go into those and talk to us about those.
So the 6 leadership saboteurs are the most common behaviors and challenges that leaders face, and they hold them back. They keep them from being successful. And I want to start by saying that we all experience these at some point. So this isn't a like, oh, good, I don't have any of these on the list. If you've been a leader, whether it was when you first started or oftentimes as we're progressing in our career, they can pop up again because our roles are becoming more complex. So I certainly have struggled with several of these. The first is lack of self-awareness. So lack of self-awareness could be that toxic leader who has no idea the impact of their, anger or frustration has on the team. It could be very, something that's really toxic, or it's a continuum. It could be someone who just monopolizes conversations and talks over people and doesn't let people in the conversation. So not understanding the impact that you have on others, which can impact some of the other saboteurs I'm going to talk about. The second is lack of focus. And just what we were talking about is that most leaders are coming in every day. They're reacting to their environment. They're not focused on the key results. They're not getting the true results that they can get in their role. And they're also not creating clarity for their teams. And so in today's busy environment, where priorities shift a lot and change is accelerating, we consistently need to create clarity for people and clarity for ourselves. What am I focusing on today in this hour?
Yep.
In, what are the things I need to accomplish this week before the week gets away from us? And so that can hold us back if we're focused on low level or doing. A lot of these saboteurs go back to one thing, which is people going back into the technical. Mm-hmm. Now, my background is human resources. And so I remember, when I was a human resources generalist, I would take care of payroll, process payroll every 2 weeks. I'd answer benefit questions. And I was promoted to director of HR. And a few months into that, my boss came to me and she said, Laurie, I didn't promote you to keep doing the things that you were doing before. You should not be answering payroll issues. You should not be fixing doing these fixing benefits. You have to be focused on creating leadership programs for our team and these other more strategic things. So I wasn't focused on the right things. The other thing is I wasn't delegating to my team, which is the third saboteur. And I'm grateful that I had a leader who gave me that feedback.
Yeah.
Because I thought my value for the organization was my technical expertise, my HR background. Right. And it was in that independent role. But when I moved into a leadership role, the competency shifted. And while it was good to have some of this background, it was that background that was actually holding me back from being successful as a leader.
Yeah. Again, the clarity of the job description of the key activities.
That's right. That's right. And so I had to shift out of the doing and the fixing and getting in the trenches to the more facilitating and focusing on that more strategic part. So lack of delegation is the third one, of holding on to things or not training our team, building our bench strength.
ClaraTY in Action is proudly sponsored by Telehealth for Her, where women's health finally gets the attention it deserves. At Telehealth for Her, they offer professional, comprehensive medical care designed to optimize your hormones, restore your gut health, and boost your energy. Because let's get real. Who doesn't need more energy? Your body is the foundation of everything you build. So let's make sure we are fine-tuning it for optimal performance. So if you've been out there crushing it in life, but still feeling a little bit off with some of that brain fog, hormone changes, sleepless nights, or emotions that are all over the place, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. Telehealth for Her helps ambitious women just like you take back control and feel like yourself again so that you can keep leading with purpose and power. Check them out at mariahprinceallen.com or Telehealth for Her and start your journey back to a vibrant, unstoppable you. ClaraTY in Action is proudly sponsored by My Cluck Hut. Yes, the soap company that is the one your mother should have warned you about. Now, don't let the name fool you. This eco-friendly soap company will get you clean without feeling dirty. But you know what? My Cluck Hut is about more than just getting clean. They have built and continue to grow a community that gives a cluck about the planet, about people, and about creating a reality where diversity and sustainability are not a pipe dream, but fundamental core values. So when you shop with My Cluck Hut, you're not just buying soap. You're choosing to be a part of something bigger than any one of us can be alone. So if you believe in shopping with purpose and from a brand that isn't afraid to speak truth to power, then go check them out, mycluckhut.com. The 2025 Tennessee Pride Chamber Allied Business of the Year. My Cluck Hut, it's more than a soap company. It's a clucking revolution.
The fourth is lack of team engagement. And often those come from the other saboteurs. If I am not self-aware, my team's probably not engaged. If I'm not focused on developing my team and building relationships and coaching and giving them feedback, they're probably not engaged. And so there's many reasons why, but that could be something that holds someone back. They could be someone who is conditioned in the traditional environment of a few decades ago. I was conditioned in that environment,
right?
Where, these things weren't as important then of coaching. We weren't talking about coaching or engaging people. That started to evolve as different generations came in. And so a lot of people have been conditioned to just give directions, answer questions, jump in the trenches, keep things moving, and that's leadership. And that's really shifted. So you can have a lack of team engagement if you're not focused on those, I call them caretaking the culture elements. And then the fifth is conflict avoidance. So I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and thinks to themselves, I hope I have some people problems today. But if you've been leading for a few months or more, it's just the reality of the role is that we have to navigate team dynamics, personalities, challenges. And often leaders will hold back and they won't deal with those before they become a bigger issue. Yeah. There could be people pleasing and it just could be discomfort around that. And while we can build skills around it, it's a really important element of making sure we have a healthy team. Because if someone's not performing and the manager doesn't do anything about it, then we're frustrating our top performers.
It's funny you say that. I was on a leadership call yesterday with one of the teams that I work with, and it got heated. Like we were getting into it. And, we had all the different personalities in there. And, and at the end of it, the owner of the company, when we went around and we're like, okay, rate it. He's like, this was the best meeting. I love that we dug into it. And that's what, we all said. And he and I talked offline earlier. He's like, those meetings, they sometimes worry me that people are going to think they're negative. I was like, we all have the same goal. And I was like, and this is why we do it, because you have your vision. I have my vision. Well, it's like, we all have it. And when we share and have that conflict, somewhere in the middle is the magic.
That's right. That constructive conflict is healthy and essential for teams. Yep. And I do think many managers, and I think it's human nature for some people, they don't want to rock the boat, or they feel, like you said, that it seems like a negative type of meeting. And really, it's the exact opposite. As long as it's constructive and it's not destructive conflict, it's necessary for us to have that on our teams. And in fact, I encourage leaders to create some constructive conflict. Ask questions like, who disagrees with me? Mm-hmm. Who has a different point of view? Those are ways you can build psychological safety on your team, where people feel that they can speak up and share those true ideas. We'd rather have a meeting like that where people are sharing it than they're on the back end, right?
Exactly. Love it. So what's number 6?
Number 6 is passive leadership. And so when we think back again to the more technical, traditional environment where you could be fairly reactive as a leader and be pretty effective. And as we've had, different generations and we've moved into this new environment, leadership has to be active. Mm-hmm. And that means having meetings with people, building alignment, showing that appreciation, just actively being involved. It's not a position we hold. And I just find with many managers and even executives, they struggle with this. I'm surprised at how many don't have regular meetings with their employees. Right. And I think it's just missing a wonderful opportunity as a touch point, as a place to create clarity, a place to coach, to delegate, to build alignment with the team. I know I have to create clarity with myself every day and with my team every week. Otherwise, we're in 50 different directions and we're wasting time and energy. Mm-hmm. And so active leadership is so important. And in today's hybrid environment, it's become even essential.
Absolutely. Hugely.
Because many managers are sitting behind their laptops thinking, this is the work of leaders. And it takes more energy and effort to lead people in a hybrid environment. And so you have to be that active leader.
And this is where, going back to kind of full circle, you might have to rewrite the rules of leadership. Like you may have to rewrite your job description, other people's, because the way that you led 5 or 6 years ago, it's a different landscape now. And so being able to allow for that evolution, allow for that. And again, being in there, and it's sort of an oxymoron because you want them to be active, but you don't want them to micromanage. And again, that's getting back to, what does leadership mean? It means to lead them to be stronger. It's not doing it. It's not fixing it. It's, giving them and empowering them, to step up and lead as well. And I remember I went to a talk many years ago. It was a leadership talk, and they showed a video and it was at a concert, and like one person went out and started dancing and they sort of kind of led it. Then another person came in, and then all of a sudden there was this big crowd. And what they said is that first person leads, that they inspire others to take action. But by the end, you don't know who the leader is because everyone's in there dancing together. And I thought that that was always a great analogy, because when it is a healthy, high performing organization, everyone is a leader in some shape or form.
That's right. I love that analogy because you're instilling this in people. And so, and I think about how when we talk about accountability in most organizations, it's usually negative. Like, oh, we have to hold people accountable. And I like to use the word facilitate accountability. We instill accountability. Mm-hmm. And that, just similar to what you were saying, is we empower people by asking questions. And it might even be in our one-on-ones, just to bring this to a practical level. You're having a one-on-one meeting with someone and you're asking them questions like, what's your biggest challenge right now? Where do you need some support? And maybe at the end of the meeting, it's, what are your top priorities this week?
Yeah.
You're not telling them exactly, I want you to do X, Y, Z. You're asking them for their professional opinion, for their brilliance of what they think, and you can coach them through that way. Yeah. And so you're instilling accountability and allowing people to step up into that instead of the micromanaging.
Exactly. Laurie, this has been amazing. So many great tidbits. I would love to ask, you mentioned, you've written a book, you have a team. What are you working on next? What's coming in next for you?
What's next is the Elevated Leader Program, which is modeled after the book that just released. And our next cohort of that is starting in January. So I'm really excited to help leaders tangibly have that support to put these principles into action.
Fantastic. And where's the best place for people to find you?
The best place is theelevatedleader.com, and also LinkedIn. Love to connect with anyone on LinkedIn.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, one final question before I let you go on with your day is, sitting where you sit today and learning all the lessons up to this point in time, how do you now define success for yourself?
Success to me is a dual element here. And one of them is professional, in that I feel like I'm making an impact and growing and developing towards my potential. I really never think we reach our potential in our lifetime, that there's always more. But it's also the personal side of having joy of life and being able to enjoy life. And I know so many people who are successful outwardly, or maybe in a business sense, but don't have that connection in their personal life. They don't have a thriving personal life. And that's so important to me. And it's also one of the tenets of this book I wrote, is not just to become a more effective and strategic leader, to be able to use your time and focus on the most important elements of leadership, but it's also, if you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you don't have time for your personal life, to be able to have quality of life.
Yeah,
so that you can really be intentional at work and also enjoy your personal life. And that's what success means to me.
Fantastic. Well, Laurie, thank you so much for bringing some clarity to us, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. And I love the ideas of the saboteurs and being aware of them. So appreciate you, your messages, and just wishing you continued success.
Thanks so much, Clara.
Well, I'll tell you, Laurie and I are just cut from the same cloth. I could talk to her all day. I really loved, all the things that she said, get really clear on what are the key result activities, make sure that everybody is really staying in their lane, which may mean that you need to modify the lanes from where they are, help them with resources to delegate so that everybody can do that, because being a great leader today does take a little bit more intentionality, which could also equate to a little bit more intentional time and investment. Remember, our people are an asset, and we need to invest in our asset. So we're going to have to open up space. And a lot of that can come back from stepping back, less micromanaging, more delegating. I loved her 6 saboteurs, focusing on making sure we're aware, focused, we're delegating, we have strong engagement, we're not avoiding conflict, and then again, being more active. So simple things aren't always so easy, but remember, everything's a work in progress. It's always about progress over perfection. So I would love to hear how you're doing with these tips. And please, let's continue to share these with others, because people out there are struggling and we have ways to help them. So thanks for being here. We'll see you next time for another episode of ClaraTY in Action.